There you go. I am very happy to announce our speaker this month is Orson Sampson. Orson is a full stack engineer at Interface Work with a current focus on Angular, Net.js, and MongoDB, and a background in backend development using .NET. Next to building scalable applications, he also enjoys swimming, video gaming, and learning. Take it away, Orson.
Yeah, hi everyone. Good morning from Nigeria. And I would say I just dispatched my first action, a greeting just now. I'm Orson, and today we're going to see how easy it is to get started with NGXS. So I'm going to share my screen now. I would like to confirm if you can see my screen. Okay, it's amazing. Okay, as I said, getting started with NGXS is easy, and that's what we're about to see today. And as you already know, my name is Orson, and just a brief intro about NGXS. NGXS is a state management library, particularly tailored for Angular. It simplifies the interaction and management of state, abstracts complexity, and improves maintainability. However, that's just like a high-level introduction to that. And I would like to first dedicate this presentation to Bonnie. She has supported my professional development and has made Angular Nation a home for everyone to try. And that has been, she's been really special. I will also want to thank AG Grid for their continued support in the community, particularly at Angular Nation. Also. And I'm Orson, and I've already been introduced. You can reach me on these social links in case you have any other additional questions or something or anything you want to chat about technology-wise. I work with amazing and brilliant colleagues at Interface Work every day. You must also know that Interface Work is a UX design and software engineering agency. We are unique in combining UX design and technology expertise. So I would like to talk about the problem, right? Why do we even need NGXS or state management in the first place? And there are two primary problems I see, and that is when you need to when you have a complex network of components that need to talk to each other, whether up the chain or up the chain and to a sibling higher up the tree, or you have this situation where you have a state that needs a component that has its state within itself and needs an external component needs to interact with that state. And we're not talking about just one component, we're talking about lots of components. If you have an app with just 2 to 3, 4, 5 components, I would say you probably don't need NGXS or state management. But when it becomes a lot, I think you need to, because at some point it becomes a complex virtual graph when you have so many things interacting with that state externally. So as I said, this is one of the problems where you have output, and input. You have this situation where you have a component C that is deep within a tree of components, and C component needs to send out information, and component A2 on the right needs that information. Now, a typical way, a very basic way to handle that would be to do an output using the output property of the component in Angular, using event emitters, and use an input property to receive it here. And another way people would handle this would be to use its Angular service and behavior subject. And that's also pretty fine. You know, it's not that you shouldn't use any of these things. But as I said previously, as your application grows bigger, it becomes complex to reason about when you have to do a lot of these output, and input. So that's one of the problems. Then you have this. Here I'm trying to illustrate the complex graph, but it might not look very complex here. But I think we could imagine having more than a lot more components than we have here, really. And the problem is that when these components need to interact, basically in terms of state, and state, let me just say what state. State basically is any information within the component that tells that provides information about the current. It's about data within the component. Basically, if you are talking about talks, then you have a list of talks which will have information about the title of the talk and the speaker and the time and all of that. All that is state. So when you have so many components wanting to share a particular state within one component, or even share a particular state within a service, and there's so many of them, this graph can become very messy. And when you have a bug, trying to wrap your head around all the different parts on how the data flows, it becomes a real challenge. And to be honest, state management makes it a little bit easier, in the sense that you will have just one single source of truth, and the flow of data, it's in one direction. And I think that's something we'll talk about shortly, the unidirectional data flow. So, as I said, the solution is state management. And as I just mentioned, we'll have to talk about the unidirectional data flow. And it's basically unidirectional data flow is a conceptual data management pattern that simplifies how your application responds to change. It deals with how data is updated. Data can only flow in one direction. And it doesn't mean that people cannot build applications that frameworks like Angular can build applications that the data flows in different directions, in two directions, but it makes the code easy to debug and gives you some level of guarantee, and makes the code more predictable. So in this case, this is basically a very rough diagram about that shows that also talks about state management, and also shows the unidirectional flow, how data will flow in a state management system. The data comes from the store, goes to the view, and an action has to be performed for the data to go back to the store. Yeah, so the data doesn't go back to the store directly from the view without an action. So with this kind of architecture, it ensures that the data flows in one direction. And as you see later on, this is very important. This is why we have to treat our states immutably, because if not, it could lead to serious bugs or challenges that are very, very hard to resolve. So now, looking at this other diagram, This is in the context of NGXS and state management in general, but particularly for NGXS. And it shows that, data flows from the store to the state, and child states will know nothing about parent states or even sibling states. So this makes the state more predictable and ensures that there isn't any interference from other states. I think I would say specifically states are, it ensures that it remains independent and do not affect each other. It's also important that child states know nothing about sibling or parents. With this in mind, that's why it's important for states to always treat the data immutably. Okay, this is another very interesting diagram, I think. I took some time to draw this. And when we think about state, I think state management is basically an object. It's basically an object literal that has properties within it. I think it's a simple way to say it. It's when I had state management and I found out that it was just an object literal, I was kind of like surprised actually. It seems the word it was such a big word, and I think it's pretty simple internally. And it's basically an object literal, and you can see this bluish rectangle as a property that has an object or a string or an array. Basically, it's a slice of that state. So the outer box is the container, and the state is the entire inner rectangle to the left. And when you need to modify the state, you need to dispatch an action, and that's what we do here. And when you want to retrieve or query the state, you need to use selectors. In NGXS, use selectors and the select directive, which we'll see in a bit. So when you want to use selectors, you can select the whole slice of state, or you can select part of it. This is what this darker blue color tries to show here. And one other thing that I put in here is the state model, right? The state model basically describes the shape of the state. It could actually be a primitive type like a string, a Boolean, or anything. Yeah, it's possible to just have that as the state or slice of state also. But you can also have an object, which I think is something you will use more most times in your day-to-day programming tasks. So because at that you can add a lot more things to it, and it's more usable that way. But we'll start with a primitive type and try to see how we can make it an object literal later on. So I would say that NGXS basically simplifies state management, abstracts complexity, and improves maintainability in the sense that, I like the building blocks of NGXS in the sense that it hides away a lot of complexity. Then when you compare it to other state management libraries, I think NGXS makes abstracts away a lot of complexity and makes things pretty simple. We'll see that in a bit. So some of the key building blocks of I guess the advantages of NGXS are that it uses a lot of it uses a number of decorators to abstract away a lot of complexity. It also supports DI. You can inject your services or anything using injection tokens or yeah, you can do that. It also has a very simple API. You don't like one other key feature that I think the NGX system is very proud of is that you don't really need to use a switch map operator within your state handler functions. There is a switch where there's a property you toggle on or off so that it cancels the previous request. You know, if if another request is coming in. Then also very important, I think I've found this pretty useful, is that there's a life cycle for the actions. So you can track when a state is completed, when it's anyway, there are three different an action can be in 4 different states, if I remember correctly. It could be in dispatch, it could be errored, it could be successful, and it could be, yeah, basically 4. Yeah, so it's quite nice that you can actually know, execute code at these different life cycle stages. Yeah. So some of the key concepts in NGXS is the store, which we've already seen. Basically, is just a large object that it's an object that actually manages the state, that allows you to dispatch actions, allows you to also coordinate emitting out the slice of state when you request it. So basically a global state manager. Then the action is basically a class, and it's basically a class that describes the action and allows you optionally to provide a payload or metadata. You don't have to, but you can in case in situations like when you want to insert something or you want to delete, you need the ID, so you need to send that as a payload. Then the state class, the state, as it basically listens to the actions. The state model is the shape of the state slice, and the select allows you query for data from the store. Yeah, basically, this is another diagram that I will just try to explain briefly. Basically, a component dispatches an action. The state listens to that action, and the state can also fetch data optionally. It updates the state immutably. Now the component subscribes to some part of that state through a selector. So basically, this is what this diagram is saying here. So this is some code snippet that shows what the store looks like in code. Yeah, it's just some dependency you inject into the you inject into the component, and you can use it to dispatch actions. Then the action is also basically a class that describes the action to be performed, and it's a very good practice. It's a good practice to add a scope in angle bracket, in square brackets, that tells you the scope of the action. It's also very useful for debugging, especially with the Redux DevTools Chrome extension. Yeah, so you could see where an action came from and all of that. And as I said, you can also pass in an optional payload if it's required. Then this is the state class. The state class is also pretty simple. You have basically, in this particular example, you have 2 types of functions. One is the I would like to call it the action handler that handles when you make a when you dispatch an action. This is the handler that listens to that action and updates the state. And uses the payload and either makes an additional request, then updates the state. This is the action. That's the send greeting action. But in this class, we also have the selector function that is useful for selecting a slice of the state. And these two functions can be separated into two different files, but we'll start with that to show you that it's quite okay to have it here, and we can factor that out into a separate file when we need it. Then the select is basically just a function, and it references that function within the select decorator, and it returns an observable which can be listened, which can be subscribed to using the async pipe or the subscribe function. So I'm done with my slides. I would love to show you how easy it is to get this done in code. Hopefully, no mishaps. And I'll be switching to VS Code for this now.
May I ask a question, Orson? This is Brian Smith.
Oh, okay, that's fine.
Yeah, could you back up, I think it was 3 slides, where you first, this one, I think. I just want to see, so this one doesn't have a decorator in it. So I was just trying to figure out where this came from. Is this just straight custom code? How does it know that this is using the library?
Okay, this is a custom code. I just copied it in here, and you have to import the @NGXS/store above, and that's to reference this type. And you will also have to import the NGXS module for you to be able to find the store.
Okay, so I see the so I see the reference to store there, and that would have been in the airports that are up above, I guess. And then
Yeah.
okay, all right, okay. I think that answers my question, because later on I saw the decorators, so I knew where those were coming from, but this one I misunderstood. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Let me make sure I'm sharing the right thing. Okay. And can everyone see my screen, please? Okay,
It might be
cool.
good to zoom in slightly if you could.
Is this good?
I think that'll be great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's good.
Okay. So the first thing we would like to do is to install the NGXS dependency from NPM. And we can do that by, okay. I think let me walk you through the code first, please. This was just basically a new Angular app generated with the Angular CLI. There was nothing much done to it other than HTML and CSS. I think let me run the application first. And basically we have basic HTML, as you see here, and some CSS. Yeah, I used a bit of SARS to make things a bit easier for me to maintain, but it's just basic CSS, HTML. The components have almost nothing except for the sender, which has these reactive forms. It's an input, and a button. And the other CSS is in the shared styles, basically. So all this code will be available on GitHub. I'll pass it on to Julia and you can pass it on to everyone. I think that's it. Nothing. Okay. Well, let me change how this. Okay. So okay. So basically, this is how the application looks without NGXS. It's just you have a sender and you have a receiver. So I will dispatch a greeting like I dispatched earlier on in the beginning of this talk when I said hello, and the receiver component will receive it. So I will stop the dev server now and try to get started with NGXS. So we will do an npm install of NGXS/store. I usually would have done an npm install of the store and the Redux and the NGXS DevTools plugin. However, I think I noticed a bug when I tried to do both of them at the same time. The store is a runtime dependency, and the Redux DevTool is a development dev dependency. So I think I would do them separately. Yeah. Okay. So once that is installed, which is fine, there isn't any issue. The first place we go to is the app module. Yeah, you can also have, okay, let's just keep things simple. And you import the NGXS module at the root level. So you use the for root, and there's an array that takes a list of state classes and optionally an object. So for the object, we will just say development mode is true. We can actually use the environment variable to automatically do that. Okay. With that done, we'll start creating the first files for our state. And the convention is to use the plus state to name the directory with plus state, but you could name it whatever way you like. And the first thing I would like to do is to create the action, and we'll call it greeting action.ts, and basically it's a class called send greeting, and basically the action describes is named after the action you're performing. Yeah, then we have static. So this is just what describes the action. And we can have a constructor, and in TypeScript, you can actually have a public property declared in the constructor that's also available as an instance property. So now, one thing to note is that string here is the state model. Yeah, it's just a primitive type. We'll factor this out into an object later on, but just to show you that you can start with this as simple as possible. You can start with something as simple as this. And once we have the action, the next thing is to have the state file. So we create the state file, and it's pretty. So one thing you want to do first is to create your class within state, and the next thing I would do would be to decorate this with one of the decorators from NGXS and provide as a generic parameter, as a parameter, the type. That's the model, the state model, which is string here, right? And it takes an object which asks for the name, and we'll just use written for now. Then we have we'll require some defaults, and given that it's a string, we could just say maybe hello. That's fine. And we will import the state decorator from the NGXS store, and that's pretty much it. Then we will have to create our action handler, and we use the decorator and pass as input into the decorator function the action, the class, the action class. So which is called send greeting, which we just created. And this is an instant method that we will call send greeting. And we need a context, which is a state context. And again, generic parameter, we use the state model, which is a string in this case. And it also passes us the action. And the action is send greeting. And as I said, we will always have to treat our state immutably. Now, the action gives us the NGXS gives us the action with the payload. And in this case, we are just basically replacing what is already existing in the store, which is still immutable in this particular case. When we see how we work with this with an object, then I will show you how we can use the spread operator to make sure that the state is immutable, is treated immutably. So we use the context again to change the state. Set states, and we use the action. So now at this point, we have our action, and we have something listening to that action. Now we will need to have to dispatch an action so that it goes into the store. So, and to do that, we go to who is sending the greeting, which is the sender component. And here we will dispatch an action from here. And to do that, we just need the NGXS store. And this is imported from NGXS store. Okay. And right in here, we dispatch our greeting. Dispatch, and we say new send greeting. And we can just say hello. Okay. And if I can just format this nicely and import the action. Okay. Now, our receiver, this has been dispatched and it goes into the store, but the receiver will have to listen to get that state. So we go to our receiver component, and I think I forgot something. We first need to create a selector for that. So we go back to our greeting state, and we create a selector here. And it's usually better a static because you cannot reference. It's usually better a static method, but a function. I will explain why. We want to get the message. So we have state, and the model is string, and we just return. It's quite pretty straightforward here. We could even particularly return a single character if we want. So as I said, the slice of state, like if we were to return a single character, or maybe the first character, right? Or the second, right? In this, let's say the first, right? This will be synonymous to, if I will go back to my slide, this will be synonymous to this blue box down here. So, but if I'm returning the entire state, it's synonymous to having the entire rectangle. Yeah. So I will just return the state, and now our receiver needs to listen. And the way it listens is uses another decorator, as NGXS loves, and we love also. The select, and we try to reference the selector function, which is in the greeting state message, and we have message, and it's a type of observable. It returns an observable. So once we have this, now we are ready to receive messages now. But we first need to go to our templates to display. And to display it, I'll use the HTML text content and use the async pipe. Yeah, I think with that done, okay, we need to start up our server again. I think I shut that down. Hopefully no issues. Okay. Okay. And if we refresh, we don't see anything. Okay. And the reason why we don't see anything is good that that happened. Is because after we created our state, we don't tell the store about the state. So we need to come here and register the state with the store, with the NGXS model, basically. So we do greeting and state. And I think now it should work. So we get hello. And if we just dispatch the greeting, we get hello Angular San Diego Meetup. Fantastic. So now one thing I would like to do is just to change this up a bit so that we get the data from here. Yeah. So we'll just go to our send component and just use this form value message. And once we save that, come back to this and say, hello, everyone. We will see that here. So pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And I think the next natural step I would say is to really have the state model as an object, as an object. So let's do that. Let's say interface, we call it greeting state model, and it will have a message property. We can have other things here as well. not just the message, but for now we'll stick to that. And now we need to tell the NGXS class and functions about the new model, the new state model. So we'll change this to greeting state model. We tell the state context that it should be expecting greeting state model. And I think that's pretty much it for now. So we need to also change the default to an object, since we now have an object and we have message and we say hello again, right? And now our send greeting, our state model is now an object. So one way to deal with this is how to deal with it is one way, obviously. We can get the state, the previous state from the context. And we will create a new state. And the new state will, it's good practice to, like in this case, there isn't, what would I call it? Any other thing outside the message property here, but I still do that every now and then. Then we will now set the new message action payload. Our payload, we are getting our message through the payload and we're setting it there. So now this is a new object, which is now a different reference type, a completely different reference from the old reference coming from the state. And we set it here. And with that done, if we go back to our application, I think it should be working. And now we get an object. Okay. Now the problem with that is that I forgot to change our selector, because our selector is no more expecting a state model of string anymore. It's expecting a model now. So we need to treat that accordingly. And now we are still going to get an object, but if we now say we're only selecting the message property, then we get that. And if we save and go back here, yes, we get our hello again. And we can also get it from here. Okay. And unfortunately,
No,
we
in the
don't.
state, sorry, in the state, Orson, you misspelled the message instead of ME, you spelled it MA.
Massage.
When you were creating dispatching, when you, no, come down a bit. Where you copy the state.
Line 22.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
thank you so much. So when we save, it should all work. And if I do that, it all works now. Thanks, Chris. Okay. So this is all good and it's great. But one thing I would like us to also do is extract this into a separate file, the selector, and let's see how to do that. But first, let us create a new file for our state model to make things easier. Creating the model, the TS, and it's just basically copying this to the new file. Nothing, no special. Yeah. Then we reference it, and that's good. Then now we create a new file for our selector, and we can do that by creating the selector, the TS, and we can extract this out from here, come here and create class greeting state. Okay. So then we paste it here. Now, but unfortunately, our NGXS would not be able to recognize this selector. And the only way to do that would be to reference the greeting states class from here. And once we do that, NGXS can find the selector and can use it as there's nothing else to change. And now once we have the selector here, there's we need to go back to our receiver component, which references the selector from the greeting state initially. But now we have a greeting selector class too. And with all that, we should be good. Yeah, and we can still dispatch and everything is still working. Now, one more very important thing. I personally do not like the fact that we are referencing the state class directly here, So NGXS provides a way for us to name our state files using something called state tokens. And if we go back there, we can create the state token using export. Okay, new state token. And okay. Let's use it like that, and we can use our state token here. And it all works fine. But the advantage is that we don't have to provide this hard reference to the greeting state. So we can replace this greeting state with the token now and remove the import and import this. And we save, and if we go back, it all works. And if we send a greeting, we also get the greeting. Sure. One last thing I would like us to do is to install the Redux, the DevTools plugin, the NGXS DevTools plugin, so we can see how the Redux DevTools extensions help us potentially debug our application. And we can get that from npm install NGXS DevTools plugin, yeah. And it's a developer dependency, and we install that. Okay, then we go to our app module, and we say NGXS Redux Dev. I think this is it. Yeah. Oh. It'll help. Okay, I think this is fine now. And if we go back to the application and open the now, the first action that is dispatched, I think, internally by NGXS is the init. And if we take further actions, we will see them dispatched here.
Orson,
And you
could you
okay.
do me a quick favor and make that a little bit larger?
Okay. Oh, sorry.
The developer tools. Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay. So now we just dispatched an action, and as you can see, the description we provided to our action is visible here, which helps us know that this is coming from the greeting state or scope. And when you have lots of actions in your application, this can be very helpful. And it also tells you what it was previously and what it is now. And it shows you, gives you a lot more information about the action, the state itself, and again, the difference that we just saw. So I think with that, pretty much wraps up what I wanted to show, because I wanted to show you that it's pretty easy to get started and you don't have to overthink it and stuff. It's straightforward, and I think it's pretty similar to the way we write our Angular code as compared to other state management libraries. Yeah, so I'm open for questions and any other feedback.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Orson.
Yes, yeah, I was gonna say, I thought that was great.
Yeah, we can pause this for a second. If anyone has questions, there's two ways you can ask. We're a pretty small group, so you can either you can just unmute and ask directly if you feel comfortable doing that. Or if you don't feel comfortable doing that, or maybe you don't have a microphone, you can go ahead and put it in the chat, and then Julie and I can read the question for you.
Okay, I've got some questions. Can I fire away?
Yeah, let's go for it, Alex.
Okay, cool. Okay, so first off, Orson, great demo. Very fearless to do this in real time. I do not think I could have done it myself. So can we go back to the code really quickly? I just want to take a look at two files because there were two things I saw that I was very interested in. So the greeting action, can I take a look at that really quickly? Yeah, so on line 3, what is that? So you declared like payload public. Does that like make it like an automatic getter or something? Like that's fancy. What's going on there?
Yeah, okay, basically we can just change it up a little bit. We could declare this as payload, say it's a string, remove the public and set it here.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. Okay, yeah, I'll definitely use that in the future. And not, okay, that was my first question. And then the other one is, can you go to the greeting selector?
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, on line 6, the selectors, that's like an array. Is that indicating that like this is the selector that could be applied to like other states, so you could like reuse the selector, or am I reading too much into this?
No, in fact, let's say we have a different yes, you can have multiple states come into this. Let's say we had a different token, let's call it let me just make it easy to see. Let's say we have a different token called talk state token or something. Now we will have to name this properly now and call it greeting state or something. And then have our talks. Talks state. Yeah. So this is what this would do. So if you have an array of, so even you could also use the class if you had something like talks states or something like that, it can receive multiple states. Yeah, so you can aggregate information from multiple states and return it back. So you can query from multiple states. Yeah. So you can now do some logic that says, okay, get this from here, and return a completely new object. So you could just return a new object that says greeting, message, and talks. from talks
Stocks.
list or something like that.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's neat. Yeah, I find myself in that situation kind of often. I have to use like that combined latest where you're just listening to a bunch of behavior subjects, and then when any one of them changes, then you like update that in the component. But this is much cleaner. Cool. And then last question. So is this like a replacement for NGRX, or like are there situations where you would use like one over the other? I guess like what improvement does this bring to the table?
I think the fundamental thing it brings to the table is simplicity and familiarity for Angular developers. You're still using classes and you don't have to write a lot of code to set it up. You are basically, the code you're writing is focused on your state. You don't have to write like a lot of boilerplate code anyway. And in comparison to NGRX, NGRX is more functional, uses the functional approach, and it could be, I would say, switching from the style, the code style of Angular and switching to NGRX functional, then go back to Angular might be challenging for some people. And NGXS provides a familiar coding construct to work with that's very similar to working with Angular. And to me, it's pretty easy to get started and even use in comparison to other state libraries, including NGXS anyway. I would also say that the idea that you have these action life cycles, which maybe I can give a talk about that maybe some other time. It's quite very, very useful. You could actually react to changes in the action life cycle. You can actually react to when the action was dispatched, when it's completed, if it was successful or errored out, or even canceled. In the case, if it's canceled, we're talking about when you dispatch two asynchronous requests and one gets completed, it then cancels the previous one, similar to what you have with the switch map. Yeah. So, so it's, to me, I think it's powerful and pretty blends in with Angular. Yeah, that would be my response.
Okay, cool. Okay, thank you very much, Orson. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alex, you must have taken good notes there, because I feel like you know exactly what files to go to, which line to go to. So really
I'm
direct
here.
questions.
I'm here to learn. Oh yeah.
Love it. I think the one thing that, just like to be super explicit, you did ask one point if you would use it ever like with NGRX. I think the best practice there would be no, right? Or something like we would never suggest anyone say use NGXS and NGRX in the same application. It's kind of an either or situation. You choose which one's best for you.
Yes, you're right.
Okay. Cool. Those are some great questions, Alex. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions? Orson.
Yeah, I'm listening.
All right, great. Well, I mean, I think that's just because it was, you said making NGXS, sorry, look, getting started is easy, and I think you definitely made it look easy. So thank you so much for that. And thank you so much for volunteering to speak at our event tonight. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.